Say hi, my name is Azalea Longmire, and the school counseling consent form that I found was from Cache County School District, which is located in Utah. And some things that the consent form mentioned was parents and guardians being able to refer students to school counseling, while also students was able to request school counseling on their own. So during these services was only provided for a short term. None of the services was going to be long term, and also the services is not for diagnosing students with mental health issues nor treating it. Their focus was, making sure that they can be able to engage with other students, have better behavior if they have anxiety, sadness, or sense of loss of self-control. Just building leadership skills and making responsible choices is the focuses for the services they was providing for students. They also mentioned about, the community is able to build trust within that student through the teachers, the school counselor, parents, and guardians. Also, it was important for school counselors to keep confidentiality amongst the student and people who are not involved or not the student's teacher, parent, or administrator. Administrators, guardians, parents, and teachers were able to know information on the students and what was going on in the sessions to a certain extent if it's best for the student. And it was, if they shared information, it was for the sake of, helping that student, being able for them to work as a team to help improve the student more. Another thing, they require by law that students who suggesting, self-harm or harm or others, it must be reported. It's required by law. Also, if there are suggestions that the student might be experiencing, child abuse and things of that nature, then that must be reported immediately to the appropriate places. Also, they have this thing whenever the parents sign the consent form, because, all students are under the age of 18 for the most part, and whenever they sign the paper, they have the option to wait 2 weeks, or they have an option to waive the 2 weeks. So, the 2 weeks could be, allowing them to think about it, have a second chance to wonder if they really want to participate in these services. So it was totally up to the parent or guardian if they wanted to waive it or have it. So compared to the ACA codes of ethics, they both talk about, the disclosure of confidentiality. It talks about forming relationships and just making sure it stays professional between the student and the relationship's not getting too close where, the counselor is acting like the mom and stuff like that. Just making sure it's always professional, and also being able to fulfill those relationships for the student within the teachers, administrations, and all that. In contrast of the ACA Code of Ethics, it did not talk about, the permission to record, did not talk about, permission for other people to observe. It did not talk about group counseling and how they have to keep the confidentiality within the group counseling. So, the students have to make sure, we're not telling our friends about what's going on, and, just making sure that it's a safe space for others. Also, does it talk about how the student has the access to their own copies of, the sessions? It does not mention that. Also, to compare it to my state board regulations, which is in North Carolina, they both talked about seeking barriers to overcome, seeking those barriers and making sure that we can overcome them and finding ways to better help the student. It both talks about, working with the school community, the teachers, the district, and whoever else to help better the education for students. They did talk about that, both of them. In contrast, it did not talk about the diversity of students. It did not mention how school counselors are expected to be inclusive to all students and making sure that if they there is a student that they're not familiar with on their culture and stuff, that they're making sure to accommodate for them and do that research so they can help them at their best ability. And to add the source, says school-based play therapists and school counselors can create partnerships with teachers by implementing collaborative programs that support teachers in addressing their students' social emotional needs. And this is by Post and other authors, and the year is 2022. And, that just goes into about how teachers are able to collaborate with the school counselor to, have the better benefit of the student.